Hello and welcome back to MTDCNC, my friends. Thank you all for watching. We always appreciate your time, especially because we love learning new things. I'm with Robert today, and guess where I am? Even though I'm wearing short sleeves, I am in Canada in the wintertime because this is one incredible project. Now, we're at Xtended. Robert is the owner of Xtended, and we are looking at a welding automation cell. We're gonna get to talk with the guy who runs it as well, but stay tuned for that video. Firstly, we want to talk with Robert, the owner, about why automation, why a welding cell, the products they make here, and how it has helped him create more success in the same or even less amount of time creating some of the parts. So Robert, we have a lot to go through today. Let's start with just saying thank you for joining me on MTD, my friend.
Oh, thank you for coming out here and filming us, coming up here to Saskatchewan, Canada. Thank you for bringing the warm weather. We're in around the -40 temperature. Today we're, I think, at -8, so thank you, Tony, you're warming it up for us.
-8, it's the least I could do at -8. With that being said, Robert, we're standing in front of your first automation cell. I know for a fact this is not going to be your last automation cell, sitting in boardrooms with you, but what was the concept and mindset behind, I think we need to step into automation?
Well, we've been getting more and more into automation, more and more into production. We mostly service as a company here the mines in Saskatchewan, and as production builds, as they start to have trouble with the supply chain, we know we're going to need to build more for them. We need to build a product that's competitive because they're competing in a world market also, right? So we have to build products that are price competitive with what you buy around the world, but we want to build it right here in Saskatchewan where the mines are operating, right? So the natural progression was to move into automation. We tried doing it on our own when we first started. We had an old lathe. We rigged it up to a rheostat and had a water-cooled MIG gun with an arm attached to it, and we were doing some automation, but we knew we needed to move to the next step. That's where we went to Acieta, mostly because they seemed to sell the whole package. It wasn't just about selling us a welder and walking out the door and saying, thanks a lot, thanks for your business, right? It was more about they came in here, they helped us get set up, they understood our business, they understood what we wanted to do, and they wanted to help us be successful and not this be the last robotic arm we buy from them, right? And when we went to their facility in Omaha, we really got to see where we can go for the next levels too, right? So this is an advancement. We're welding hydraulic cylinders, end caps to tubes, glands, port fittings, that kind of stuff. We're doing it automated. This is a dual cell, right? So while it's welding on this side, we could be setting up a product on the other side of the machine. The screen is up right now, so the person operating over there is protected from the weld flash that's going on over here. When it's done welding here, the arm moves over to the other side, this screen comes up, that screen comes down. Now it can weld over there, we can come in here, remove this product and get the next one set up, right? So to us, it was just a way to make ourselves more efficient, bring the cost of our products that we're building for the mines down in price, but not compromise the quality and the value of what we're selling them to. Because they're buying cost of ownership, right? They want to know that the product they're buying is going to last and be durable. Working in an underground mine in Saskatchewan, which is very harsh conditions. Most people don't realize how harsh the conditions are here at a mine, but we're moisture, we're salt, we're high corrosion, you know. There's all kinds of those things that we're being affected by working underground and our products working underground. So we need to keep that quality up, but moving into automation was our next step, right? And we're excited about what the future holds. Some of the employees, when we brought in automation, the first jump, right? Everybody says, well, I'm going to lose my job to a robot, right? And that's not the intention here. That's not what we're doing. What we're trying to do is create more jobs through efficiencies, through technology and gains that we have in what we're building for our customers so that we can build more for them and compete globally.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about that, Robert, the mines. I want to talk about the fact of having the fear of losing a job. But before we get into those two topics, you mentioned what you're making. And off camera, you and I had a conversation that is really worth conveying. Audience, get this. They knew this cell was coming in. They knew that they had a project coming in as well that they quoted at 2 months. 2 months. and you actually had to use this whole cell almost as a training purpose for that job. Would you mind sharing that whole story with the audience? Because ultimately, this is the success that automating welding has done. And that's not saying how proficient your welders were before the machine got here, because they were doing it since they're 7 years old. But what was able to be accomplished as soon as this arrived?
So we had a project. It was building 20 bolt bins for one of the potash mines here in Saskatchewan. When I say bolt bins, they were big bins to transport bolts that are 8 feet long from above ground to underground. They wanted to get rid of the wood pallets, so they wanted 20 of these metal pallets built. They're basically a little over 8 feet long, a little over 4 feet wide, and we had quoted the job before the machine came in. We figured it was going to take us about 2 months to weld, with our welder working just on a regular shift, production, you know, building these things one after another, 20 of them. We got the machine about the same day the material arrived to build the bolt bins, and the trainers show up from Acieta to do our initial training to teach the operators how to run the machine. We said, why don't we use this opportunity to build these bolt bins and do the training at the same time, so they're experiencing real world training instead of just building parts, right? So we set up the bolt bins. Our welders, by the time they got done the job, had found more efficient ways that they should have built it with the robotic welder, but even building it with those inefficient ways that they found, steps that they could have done differently, and being trained on the machine at the same time, we completed all 20 bolt bins in 2 weeks.
2 weeks with a quote of 2 months. Now, something else that's fascinating to me about that subject is, this is your first welding machine. This is your first automation cell. You have traditional welders, which most of us do when we're thinking about starting into automation. And where you did have the fear of, and as it got closer, it was more anxiety of, oh, I am going to lose my job. That all came with it. So you immediately had a job come in, which was on-the-job training. You mentioned that. So let's talk about the service and support that Acieta offered while simultaneously training, trying to get a job out of the door, and also your guys were clever enough to figure out, in the future, we're going to do it this way and this way and this way, based on their own history of welding without a robot cell.
Exactly, right? So like you said, this was our first robotic welder. We have some CNC machining equipment in the shop that our lathe guys, our machinists, are familiar with running and programming. Our welder is a traditional welder. He only knew stick gun, MIG gun, TIG gun, right? He didn't have anything to do with the computer. He was very intimidated before the robotic welder showed up here. Am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to learn how to run it, right? He was very anxious before the equipment arrived, right? When the equipment arrived and we started setting it up, he got more anxious, right? But Acieta showed up to do the training, and my God, they were wonderful. They showed Braden that this wasn't a big scary box that he could run, and it was a welder, and it was easy to program and was easy to use, and he would be able to do it without additional training and the skills that he had. And I think that was the biggest step, is that our welder, Braden here, he took to it like a duck in water, I guess you would say, right? And he was operating and running it and programming it himself within days of Acieta being here. They were here for the week doing the training, or 4 days, I think, doing the training, and then they left, and Braden completed that first job that next week himself without them being here. They left their phone numbers, they left emails that he could contact them on, and really I don't think he reached out to them at all in that next week. He has reached out to them since, and they've been very helpful and very accommodating with everything, and we really appreciate that. But that's what I mean by buying from Acieta. It was a full package. They didn't just sell us the robot, they wanted us to be successful at running it. They made sure that the software that they have designed and developed is easy to use, it's friendly to use, it's safe to use. And yeah, Braden just loves it. He's been a happy guy ever since it got here. And the week before it got here, it was not that same guy, happy guy.
I love that story. Now, we've talked about the service, we've talked about what it's been able to create. Now, you and I know that where we are in Canada, this would be considered kind of a unique project. There's not a ton of automation around. You've even described it to me as the cool thing, right? The cool technology around, which has actually inspired people to maybe come interview with you and go, look at this cool new toy. But would you recommend applying automation, especially working with Acieta, to any of the other companies that are around here that are watching the video right now going, I didn't even know Xtended had an automation cell. I didn't know we could do that, because you're also a job shop. You mentioned to me we have one-offs, three-offs. A big job would be 15 or 20, right? And you've invested in automation. So can we convey that message to an audience about going forward with automation as well?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that you need to be making thousands or hundreds of thousands of parts to go to automation. And I know here in Saskatchewan, we're probably a little bit slower at adopting some of the new technologies and the new advancements than most places. And so we are kind of a unique duck here in Saskatchewan, right? But it really doesn't need high production runs to go to automation. As you said, we're a jobber shop. There's days that we do 1 of cylinders, and there's next days we're doing 16 of or 100 of, right? But yeah, it's not the norm for us to do high volume runs. So the way this is set up, the way we have it built to run, we can quickly adapt it to different size cylinders, different length cylinders, different shapes of cylinders. And like I said, the first project we built was bolt bins. That's not a cylinder. We bought this thing for welding round stuff, right? And quickly adapted it to build a flat frame that was 1 foot tall, 8 feet long, 4 feet wide, and it just fit in here. It adapted. We had to build a couple of jigs, a strong back, but other than that, it was very easy to adopt it to build a different project. And that's what we found with it, is we can go from project to project to project. Every one of them is different, and we can still be very efficient using the robotic welder. We have to embrace the technology, not be scared of it, I guess.
I like that. That's a powerful statement. I 100% agree with you. But now you've got me thinking about something else, Robert. I told you this was going to happen, because the audience likes to know as well. You guys always know this is unscripted. So when Robert says something fascinating that I know you want to know more about, I got to bring it up, even though I was heading toward the end of the conversation, which is flexibility. Now, you mentioned this piece in the middle comes down, so we're not blinded by what's going on over there. You mentioned that you bought it even for round stuff, and the boxes that it was first on were not round. So we're talking about including automation. Automation kind of sums it up, but the flexibility of being able to simultaneously be running something on one side while we're setting up something on the other side, and it doesn't necessarily have to be round. There's so much flexibility to the cell as well, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And even the bolt bins, when we built them, we built them in 3 sections. So we built the bottom part of the bolt bin, and then the sides of the bolt bin, and then we integrated the top to the bottom. So we did the tops on one side, the bottoms on the other side, until we got all the tops done, and then we switched over the side that we were doing the tops on to integrate, to join the top to the bottom. So yeah, it's the simplicity of being able to switch from job to job, which really makes it user-friendly to use. The ability to be able to change again from round to square. It's really amazing to me how easy these things are to program nowadays. I remember when I first started machining, it was very lengthy to do any sort of programming, a lot of G-coding. Mastercam came along and changed the world for that. Different software for CAD/CAM that came around and changed the world for that. And to me now, Acieta is changing the world for a lot of robotics. They're making it user-friendly. They're making it easy to program. I have talked to other company owners that have bought robotics in the past without Acieta or without a good partner, and the welder sits in the corner not being used because nobody can figure out how to use it, how to program. It's difficult to use, it's difficult to set up, right? And that was the difference when we started talking with Acieta, is the fact that they made the whole package, and they explained to us that it was going to be easy to use, it was going to be easy to set up, it was going to be able to easily switch from job to job. And that's what really sold us on the product, was the fact that we knew it wasn't going to just sit in the corner collecting dust. And because it was an investment that we wanted to see pay back us and our customers, right?
Very, very, very well said. For those of you watching, it may not look like it, but this guy was programming machines back in the 80s. He is also a 10th generation local. So if you heard the parts that Robert mentioned about the mining industry that he's in, about the young man who was a little afraid, who had been welding since he was 7 years old and now loves this machine, stay tuned for those videos, because you're going to learn more about Xtended, more about Robert's history, and more about this incredible machine. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've learned as much today as I have, Robert. Thank you, my friend, for joining me on camera. You are incredible.
Thank you, Tony. We appreciate you coming out to the cold.